love the chase and the hunt, and I set the pace when I'm running. I always take what I want and I always give it 100. Don't need a bank, no I'm funded. Play the game like it's nothing. I'm always thankful for something. Don't take for granted, stay humble. Now wake up! It's time to look at the enemy. Look in the mirror if he is no friend to me. It's not working out.
Hello, Miami. Thank you so much for watching 305 Sports Now. Once again, I am your host, Will, and I must say it is great to be a Miami Hurricane as the Miami Hurricanes thump and destroy, flat out obliterate the University of South Florida Bulls by a score of 50-15. The Miami Hurricanes cover more than the 17.5 point spread that they were expected to cover. They just flat out dominate the game. It was a little difficult early on. I wasn't as nervous, I will say, about the game in the first half because of what was going on, since it was only a one touchdown game heading into half, as it was 22-15. But I get why the fan base was. The reason why I wasn't is because when Miami played FAMU was 25-6, and even though we knew we were going to beat FAMU, people were disappointed at the fact that it wasn't as dominant as expected, especially when it came to the running game. Miami was only running the ball for about 3.8 yards per carry in the FAMU game. But so I kind of was observing the game, and yes, I wasn't happy with some of the chunk plays that USF was getting. I thought, their quarterback, Byron Brown, looked pretty good in some instances. I thought there were some missed tackles that should have been had in that game. But I will say Miami did hang with their spread a bit, did hang with the tempo quite a bit. And the reason why I do say that is because if you look in retrospect, they had to use a trick play to score. That says something to me, because that made me feel that they are a bit, how would I say this? They feel like they're undermatched. Miami's is too much of a match for them. So they're undermatched against Miami. So Miami is too much of a match for them. So they have to resort to tactics to be able to put Miami more on their heels and be able to win this game. So I looked at that. I'm like, you know what? If Miami gets a couple stops, this team doesn't have the confidence, I feel, to be able to put more points on the board. The fact they had to go to trick play that early in the game, that's what it got to me. And also Cam, I felt, was, even though he missed a couple throws in the game, was methodically dissecting USF's defense pretty well. The what I mean by that is, like, for example, the Jacoby George pass that Jacoby George bobbled up and he got intercepted, which I agree with Alex Dano, should not have been an interception. That would have been a touchdown, because Jacoby George had nothing but green grass in front of him. That's number one. Number two, he also underthrew Chris Johnson. That would have been another touchdown as well. And I believe there was one player in the game, I think it might have been Restrepo, that was overthrown in one sequence, and Chris Johnson was underthrown. So I'm like, this game should be a lot worse for USF than it really should be. And I do think that even though we saw guys going down and so on, I do think Miami's was starting to get a bit more accustomed to the pace of USF than they were in the first quarter, because they were getting some stops and so on. The second half comes in, and I'm like, I told Chalupa Batman in his halftime show, much props, subscribe to him if you haven't yet, the Chalupa Batman. I said in his halftime, when I was participating as a member of the audience, I said that Miami needs to impose their will, and that they did. Miami did use the running game to impose their will. Although David Martinez's numbers weren't that large as far as running the football, he did have 3 touchdowns in the game. The offensive line looked a lot stronger than whatever they could whatever USF could put forth in their defensive line. They were quite dominant as the game went. Cam was able to find open receivers. As he threw for 400 yards, he was just absolutely dominant, and the team just dominated on both sides of the ball. About over on X, he was so obnoxious. Obnoxious. So glad that he was someone put the silence. Did open his mouth a little bit more later on, but someone put the silence. And even some of the fans are still kind of giving backhanded compliments, like, yeah, Cam Ward is him. I heard one guy say Cam Ward is him, but it's kind of hard, when you're competing against the team with the biggest NIL in the country, which isn't true. It's absolutely a dumb statement to make, a very ignorant one, as well as Ohio State and Oregon do outspend Miami, if I'm not mistaken. Oregon, I know outspends Miami. I know for a fact Phil Knight wants to outspend everybody, because he's dying to get a national championship before he passes away or gives up Nike, whatever the case may be. So that's pretty much what I wanted to say as far as that goes. The team itself in the second half was dominant. Cam Ward was an absolute architect when it came to pretty much drawing up whatever he needed to draw up in terms of how he weathered his progressions and was able to find the open receiver. He was, I guess you could say it better, he was more of a surgeon, and he was just precise and concrete in every single aspect of his progressions and getting the ball to every one of his receivers, whether it be down and distance or whether it be in short yard situations. He was able to get the ball, and his players came through for him. Restrepo, beast. Zay Horton was a nightmare for USF. He had over 100 yards receiving in the game as well. Caught a touchdown pass as well. Dominant, as I will say. Mish Powell gets that interception in the game as well. So let's just go to the stats. Okay, I'm going to go to the stats right now. I blew them up a little bit because I have noticed that when I've given you guys scores and so on, it kind of looks a little small on screen. So I decided to blow up the StreamYard a little bit more so you're able to see it. Cam Ward with 400 yards passing, 3 touchdowns, 1 interception that shouldn't even have been his interception at all. Because again, I'm not a big fan of the tipped interception of the receiver's fingertips, because I think it kind of makes the quarterback look a little bad in that aspect, or it takes away from the quarterback. Not to make it look bad, but it takes away from the quarterback's performance a little bit, because if you didn't see the full game, like, oh, he threw 1 pick, wasn't really his fault. I will say that. So we look at Cam Ward's game again, average 11 yards per play, 3 touchdowns, 1 pick. He was just a flat out beast as well. And we look at Jordan Lau, 6 carries, 104 yards. He had a 91 yarder in the game. Cam Ward actually had 43 yards rushing. Martinez had 31 yards. Miami averaged 6.5 yards per carry, but again, that's padded due to the Jordan Lau touchdown run throughout the game. Zay had 8 catches for 108 yards. Congratulations to Zay Horton. Over 13 yards per reception, 1 touchdown. Restrepo, 6 catches, 99 yards as well, 1 touchdown. Sam Brown, all right, people complain about Sam Brown. I wasn't on the complain about Sam Brown thing yet. I felt that, he was going to have a game, and he had this one. He caught a beautiful ball thrown to him by Cam Ward, 76-yard touchdown reception, 2 catches in the game as well. Martinez was also great. Catch the ball in the backfield, 2 catches, 50 yards. Elijah Rowe, 2 for 25 as well, beasting out. Elijah Loftus gets in the game, 1 catch, 17 yards. I mean, listen, I can go on and on about our squad, and they just flat out balled out. I just want to go over the top 8 rushing attack in the country. We're going to run all over you guys because, you haven't really been tested yet. 32 carries, 62 yards, less than 2 yards per carry. The longest run was by Kelly Joyner, 17 yards, and that's it. So Miami dominated the line of scrimmage. When you really look at it in retrospect, Sean Atkins, 8, okay? He had 11 catches for 125 yards. But, I mean, it was what it was. Everybody else was pretty much held in check. Tyron Keith, 2 catches, 67 yards. Payne Singletary, 2 catches, 27 yards. So, really, it was just a Sean Atkins show. He only locked in on 1 receiver because that was the only one that was able to get open. 303 yards passing. But then again, if you look, again, in retrospect, they also run a lot of plays, but they didn't run that many plays. Let's look at the defensive side of the ball. Maui Noah, 8, 11 total tackles, 3 solo, 1 sack, 1 tackle for loss. The guy I want to go over is also Simeon Barrow. He had 6 total tackles as well, 1 tackle for loss and a sack. Hakeem Mesler, a sack and a half. Tyler Barron got a half a sack as well. Team sacked the quarterback 4 times. How about Miles Muyung? All right, with a career interception, getting that pick and putting on that turnover chain from a member of the audience, from the crowd. Kane gave him a chain. You worked that chain real well. I will say that. I want to go over the team stats a little bit. Let me just fire up it over here. All right, as I go with you guys. I went over the team stats. The reason I want to go to team stats because, like I said, this is a team that averaged, if you look at it, I'm sorry, guys. This is a team that averaged about, 80 plays per game? Right, the Miami Hurricanes kept, let's see, I'm doing some math here off the top of my head. All right, at 62 rushes in the game did USF, and they threw the ball about 26 times. So they had about 62 rushes through the ball. Yeah, they ran about 88 plays right in the game as well. So yes, they kept up their average, okay? But all for naught because the offense was pretty shut down. Total yards 365, Miami's 592. Okay, Miami did a good job. Okay, 365 is not a lot when you really think about all the plays they ran in the game. Miami was just again, they held them to field goals. Okay, they really held them to field goals. Let me go back and just stop the sharing. They really held them to field goals, and I think that's something that you have to really make a case for, and that's the most important thing. Okay, now Miami heads to the ACC play. I will be doing a breakdown of Virginia Tech Now we're getting to ACC play, and Kyron Drones is, is decent. Virginia Tech has not been as good this year as people thought they would be. But I will give my take on it as well. I do think Miami should win this game, although I do think it could be a trap game, only because Vatek always plays Miami tough. Doesn't matter what kind of year the Canes are having. So I think that's something to think about. But I like what Coach Cristobal says. You play the game. I'm sorry, Alex Mirabal said you play the game. And Mark Cristobal's philosophy is that's the best team you're playing that week. So got to treat everybody like the number one team, ranked team in the country. So that's all. That's pretty much all I got to say. But again, Cam Ward, dial him up. Okay, a 400-yard passing game as well. The Miami offensive line did impose their will. Receivers did what they needed to do as well. I'm dying now. The only thing I'm dying to see, a couple things in the game, though, that I did not like is the penalties. Miami's got to clean that up. Right? Miami really needs to clean up their penalties. That is something that needs to be done. Okay, that they've had some issues. Except in the Florida game, they were dialed in the Florida game. They played a near perfect game. They need to kind of do an ACC play because that could cost you. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, that's really much all I really think about. I do want to see the running game get going, but I think they will now that they're in conference play. We may see some more design runs, some more counters, and since the line will be fully intact with Jalen Rivers coming back, I do think Miami will impose their will both on the left and right side of the ball a bit more. So I do think this will be the time where we'll see David Martinez really show why we picked him up in the transfer portal and why he's a 6-yard per carry guy career-wise over in his collegiate history playing football. Ladies and gents, if you like what you heard, that's it for me. Please hit that like button, subscribe button, and share button. Everybody have a wonderful day. God bless. See you soon. All about to you guys. Bye-bye.